And welcome to the Daily Space Weather. Hey, YouTube types. It was going to be a live stream, but there's some issues with the features, and I'm not going to get into the minutia of it, but congratulations on realizing the Daily Space Weather exists. That's the past 24 hours from the SDO, the Solar Dynamics Observatory, to see hundreds of sunspots. We're pushing the 200 number once again for sunspots. A bunch of coronal mass ejections, a coronal hole opens, and lots more. So while this one wasn't streamed live, this is actually a recorded video. You may notice some small differences in the content today. It has to do with that. So you might not notice any differences, but we're telling you, it's different. So you'll see some activity from this sunspot group down here. A new large sunspot just rose in the southeastern limb. So it's another large beta gamma class sunspot group. Again, the sunspot number rising. So here's the southern hemisphere where most of the activity is located. And here we've swapped out the 304 angstroms wavelength with 171 angstroms. Or, no wait, we've swapped out 304 with 193. That's what it is. Just to add a little bit of additional contrast there. And then here's the northern hemisphere back in the 304 plus 171 angstroms wavelengths. They're all 24-hour videos from SDO. Next, we've got yesterday plus today from the GOES. That is not the GOES. I don't know what I'm talking about. The SDO. The SDO continuum there. And what we're seeing here is largely stable sunspot groups. A new group has formed down here in the southwest. Not a lot of evolution there. So at least two new groups to get names today. Here's a colorized magnetogram, as you may be used to seeing on the channel. And before we take a look at what's going on, seismically speaking, let's see what's going on volcanically. So that's the Halema Uma'u lava lake there at Kilauea. And those boxed areas, those are areas of lava fountaining and lava flows. So activity continues at Kilauea, and there's Mount Mayon with some new lava flows in the Philippines as well. So let's run down the list here and see what else is erupting. Again, Mount Mayon in the Philippines. We've got a exclusion zone degassing. It degassed 889 tons of sulfur dioxide yesterday. Luatolo also exploding. Flight level 060 there. It's about a 6,000-foot ash plume over Luatolo. Krakatau, 6,000-foot ash plume. Also, Krakatau's exploding. And again, Kilauea continues to produce new Hawaiian real estate there with another effusive eruption within the Halema Uma'u lava crater. Popocatépetl exploding in central Mexico, flight level 210. It's a 21,000-foot ash plume. Headed down to Guatemala, 16,000-foot ash plume over Fuego. Nevado del Ruiz exploding, flight level 210. Revenador, not sure if it's erupting or not. Volcanic ash not observed in satellite. Sabancaya exploding, flight level 200. It's a 20,000-foot ash plume. Please do not pole vault the caldera. By the way, this video does feature paid promotions. One of them is our Red Bubble Shop. Today's featured product is not what I'm currently wearing. That's too controversial to feature on a YouTube exclusive video, so today's featured product is Mensa. By the way, the one I'm wearing used to be our top seller for like a year and a half. Mensa is also one of our top sellers. It stands for Make Earth Not Suck Again. You may have been noticing that the planet's been sucking the past 3+ years, starting, well, preferably in March of 2020. There were some, shall we say, issues. Anyway, it's up to you to make Earth not suck again, so do your part. Visit smashomash.org, pick up some merch, help support the channel, etc. We make an eensy-weensy commission on the Red Bubble Shop sales. Thanks to everybody who's picked up merch from the Red Bubble Shop. There's like 32 different designs there on dozens and dozens of different types of products. Mensa, make Earth not suck again. It's up to you. Another paid promotion on the channel. Today's video featuring the Hemp Lucid shop. Don't forget to enter the promo code SMASHOMASH to save 10% on checkout at Hemp Lucid. There is a link below the video, as well as on our homepage at smashomash.com to our Hemp Lucid shop. So save some dough, check out some of the products if you haven't. They make great gifts as well. And again, save 10% on your checkout with the code SMASHOMASH. Last but not least, we've got an Amazon shop as well. It's amazon.com/shop/SmashoMash. And today's featured product is the cheap cycling trainer that I currently use, the CXWXC bike trainer. It's only $100 if you want to get into indoor cycling. You know, basically, don't buy a stationary bike, folks. Take your old junky bike and just put it on a trainer if you want to ride inside. Don't buy one of these like $2,000 stationary bikes. You're better off with a regular bike that actually works as a real bike and a trainer. It is way better than buying one of these, like, you know, these Pelotons and all these stationary bikes. Those are for like pro athletes. There's no reason to just not use anything besides a basic trainer like this. Again, you can find links below the video to our Amazon shop that is in the cycling items list. Next, looking at global seismicity, and we had some interesting earthquakes indeed, the largest of which was a 6.4 in the Gulf of California. So there's the location of that quake. And if Dutch Sins says that he forecasted that, I will laugh and laugh and laugh because, well, it's not near a plate boundary. So it's not in a... Anyway, I'm not even going to laugh anymore at Dutch Sins, who keeps telling people the universe is electric and that he can forecast earthquakes. It's pretty sad and pathetic. Anyway, let's roll up the list here and report quakes over a 5 magnitude, of which there were quite a few, mainly around the Pacific Rim. Probably no surprise to our regular viewers. So starting out here, there were some 5.1s at Tonga. Those were yesterday afternoon, Universal Time, 14:28 and 14:25. And then a 5.7. And then a 5.8 at 15:04. So that's still the most seismically active place in the world, following a 7+ magnitude quake there. Also a 5.1. And then finally a 5.3 up there near the Philippines. That was at 17:34 Universal Time. That 5.3 magnitude shaker. And then last night at 20:30 Universal Time, a 6.4 shows up out of nowhere in the Gulf of Mexico. So it actually is near a plate boundary, but you never hear anybody forecast earthquakes there, just saying. And then about an hour and a half later, a 6.0 south of Africa there, near the Antarctic African plate boundary. Myanmar had a 5.6 at 1:40 this morning. And since then, 4 more 5 magnitude quakes. So a bit of a global earthquake uptick here. A 5.0 at Japan. A 5.0 north of New Zealand there. A 5.3 at Panama. And a 5.2 aftershock there following that 6.4 event. And let's get back to space. And you may be hearing a lot of utter nonsense about space weather on YouTube, depending on which channels you watch. Shout out to all the hack frauds who are spouting utter unfounded nonsense about space weather. There's the past 24 hours from SDO 171 angstroms. Does that look like an inactive sun to you? If so, you are either blind or lying. So the 10.7 centimeter radial flux is now up to 164 solar flux units. That is emitted from the upper chromosphere and lower corona, right about here. And there is a 1-year graph to put that all in context. The 10.7 centimeter radial flux Looks like it's going to continue to increase today. By the way, the sunspot number is going to be way up here around 170 within the next 48 hours. In fact, it could be pushing 200 here. As we do have multiple new sunspot groups to get names. The Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard here, not forecasting any significant space weather, but a little bit of geomagnetic unrest possible today and into tomorrow, which is very consistent with our forecast for some minor glancing blow coronal mass ejection impacts. Watch our previous daily space weather videos for more details on that. There could be some minor CME impacts, coronal mass ejections, where the sun blasts off bits of its atmosphere and sometimes strikes Earth. At the moment, we've got geomagnetically calm conditions, so let's take a look at the last 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from space. This Geospace Magnetosphere movie depicts magnetohydrodynamic pressure for the past 4 hours as the system attempts to reach static equilibrium. Next Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. Not showing any quadrupoles, not showing any likelihood whatsoever of an earthly magnetic pole flip. Everybody who's lying to you about that is grifting. Yeah, grifting. They've created scams that people believe because they don't understand the science. And they don't look at simple data sets like this, our ground magnetic perturbations map, and say, where are the quadrupoles? Where are the quadrupoles? People are making millions of dollars to lie to you about space weather. KP index is currently at 2. It's a geomagnetically calm situation at the moment. KP2. And let's go to the real-time solar wind to see slow and low. So it's only at 395 kilometers per second for the solar wind speed. Solar wind density 2.4 protons per cubic centimeter. The rest of that is unremarkable. GOES magnetometers here, a little bit spiky following the subsiding of a coronal hole high-speed stream. These may be some minor, very minor CME impacts. They barely created a signal there. But that's what's going on the past 3 days as measured by the GOES 16 and GOES 18's magnetometers. And let's move to the heliospheric current sheet. So there you go. There is the heliospheric current sheet. But most importantly is the solar magnetism. So I want you to watch this green blob right here. You can see it's kind of looking like it's migrating away from the north heliographic pole. And until that happens, we will not be at solar maximum. You can see it looks like it's trying to make its way down toward the equator, but not doing it yet. That's what's going on in terms of the top view ecliptic plane field plot. It depicts the solar plasma here in its polar glory there. The Earth is currently in a south pole current sheet. North pole current sheet headed this way. It should be here within 2 or 3 days. Here's our line of sight field plot. Again, Earth is in a south pole current sheet. No new changes happening there. And here's our coronal hole line of sight plot. And by the way, we actually have imagery of one opening up right up here. So this coronal hole right here, it actually gets bigger right there, just in the past 24 hours. So let's take a look at that. And to do that, we'll go back to the SDO. So right up here, you'll see a plasma reorientation thing going on. That's the past 24 hours. There you see that coronal hole opening up there. Also down here, there's probably something interesting going on in the chromosphere as we have an active region right underneath a coronal hole. Keep in mind, those are at different altitudes. So that's interesting. And let's get to sunspots. Again, we'll have at least 2 new named groups, maybe even 3, as we do see an active region up here also. But this one down here will get a name, and this new sunspot. So we'll have 3341, 3342, and possibly 3343. As many as 3 new named sunspot groups to show up today. Let's take a look at sunspots here. There's 171 angstroms. That is where most of the activity is here. So we showed it in some detail. Again, we've got this new sunspot that just rose down here. It is beta gamma class already. You can see a lot of plasma there suspended by its strong magnetic fields. And let's subtract the 171 angstroms. And there you can see that new group rising right at the end of the video. It is a large sunspot. That's actually two new sunspots. So that there's a leading alpha class group there. That is a separate sunspot group. So here's the equatorial view. Yet another SDO 24-hour video. So yeah, we've got two new groups that'll get names over here, and two new groups that'll get names over here. That's 4 new sunspot groups. And we think it's pretty hilarious if anybody is trying to cover up these basic facts of solar activity. That is crazy and cult-like. By the way, today's shortened video will feature a cosmic ray flux update. We'll show 7 different reliable cosmic ray monitors to show you the current situation. The ghost proton flux here, a different category of particles. No spikes in that, despite 1 decent-sized flare. Actually, 2 decent-sized flares in the past 24. There was an M2.5 and an M1.5, approximately, in the past 24 hours. And let's take a look at our flare wavelengths. We like 131 plus 94 angstroms. So one M-class flare came from one of these new groups down here, and the other one came from this group down here. The likelihood of additional large flares remains at nearly 100%. So lots of large sunspot groups, lots of sunspots in general, and a very high likelihood for large solar flares, especially from the southeastern limb. Here's that cosmic ray update we mentioned. Starting with the Apatity neutron monitor, which is showing a downtick over the past 30 days. But that entire downtick is only based on the past few hours. Check it out. A big dip in cosmic ray flux just happened there at Apatity. So it is down over the past 30 days, but if you subtract the last 6 hours, it would be flat. Barentsburg is up over the past 30 days significantly. So that's interesting, wouldn't you say? Cosmic ray flux up at Barentsburg and slightly down at Apatity. As far as Athens, there's a downtick at Athens, similar in magnitude to the downtick at Apatity. Mexico City, an uptick over the past 30 days, a very slight one. It's almost flat. Next, Oulu, Finland. There's Oulu, a slight uptick over the past 30 days at Oulu. And lastly, we'll look at the Antarctican monitors. DOMB is missing data for the past 36 hours, but over the past 28 days, a slight uptick at DOMB, and the last 28 days, a slight uptick at DOMC. So cosmic rays up over the past 30 days at most monitors. Next, before we get to coronal mass ejections and filaments and our bonus features, just showing a star chart here just to show you what's going on overhead. Here's your forecast for the Lehigh Valley sky. And we highly recommend you check out the post-dusk sky, the post-sunset sky. You can see Venus and Mars very close to the ecliptic up there. The 3rd and sometimes 4th brightest object in the sky there, visible just after sunset. Here's your solar system forecast. We'll show you 1 week's worth, as we've got a crescent waxing moon. Here's where things will be in a week. We'll be moving into 2nd quarter on the 26th. In the final days of spring here, folks. All right, so here are our coronagraphs. what happened there. Somehow started playing backwards. I must have pressed the reverse button. Anyway, there are coronagraphs from yesterday, and a lot of CMEs happening there. We will analyze those here shortly. So that's 104 frames from yesterday, and here are an additional 38 from today, June 19th. Enough of that. Let's take a look at Soho Lasco C2 and C3. Certainly quite a few coronal mass ejection events happening there. I'm not convinced any of them are earthly directed, but let's continue on. We'll show stereo A, and we show this diagram to show its location. It's the red dot there, to the left of the green dot representing Earth. Stereo A here on the left. Once again, Soho Lasco C3 on the right. And we're just trying to figure out if any of those coronal mass ejections are earthly directed. At the moment, my first indication is no. I don't think so. And before we get to filaments, let's take a look at our custom coronagraphs. So here's the extreme zoomed out view. And I don't suspect those are earthly directed CMEs. You'll see this plasma reorientation happening here, and if that led to a CME, it was pretty minor. And if that's earthly directed, it's very stealthy and very diffuse. So this sort of event, you see this pop happening right here where that coronal hole opens. It's an indication that plasma has left the corona. You don't really see it splashing back down very much, an indication that it's probably ejected. But it can reorient also. So filaments do have the ability to sort of move around and reattach. So there could be some of that. There could be a combination of all three things. If that is an earthly directed coronal mass ejection, it is going to be minor. If it does impact the Earth, you can expect to see that show up on the 22nd. Let's see. So that was pretty recent. Yeah, that would be an arrival mid to late day on the 22nd. If that does strike Earth, again, it would be a minor CME impact. Here's the 193 angstroms wavelength from SDO all by itself for the past 24 hours. And yeah, that is a great example of a coronal hole suddenly opening up there as plasma reorients. And let's talk filaments. So the filament situation is that there are a lot of filaments. Not nearly as many as there were just yesterday, but still quite a few filaments, including this named one down here. It's the Cornell West filament. And there's a good candidate for a name right over here in the southeast. This one could use a name also. Oh, it looks like it's gone. It's on its way out, folks. So a lot less filaments than we have had. There still is quite a high likelihood for coronal mass ejections and about a 100% chance for additional M or even X-class flares. So the main place to watch would be the eastern limb. By the way, if you want to name filaments after living people, join us over on Twitter. You'll find us all over the internet at Smashomash. Links on the homepage at smashomash.com. Again, all over the internet at Smashomash. So there you've got the past 2.5 hours from the GOES 18 SUVI. There is a lot of instability going on. Also, the possibility of another solar polar vortex happening down here in the southern polar region. That Cornell West filament there is looking increasingly unstable. You can see another huge crown prominence over here on the southeastern portion. That brings us to our bonus feature segment, by the way. And we throw in bonus features because they tell us additional stuff about what's going on with the Earth environment. Yes, space weather. It gives us insight into changes happening to the Earth. So this helps to debunk a lot of the nonsense about magnetic pole flips, grand solar minima, the galactic current sheet, and other nonsense that people are talking about constantly on the internet without any understanding of the actual science. So here's the GOES electron flux, right? So this is measured at the F layer of the ionosphere. And this tells us things. By the way, this data is erroneous during geomagnetic storms. It's because the ionosphere puffs up. And meanwhile, the GOES 16 and GOES 18 are still using radiography to measure this at about 300 kilometers of altitude. So when the F layer moves, you get erroneous readings from the GOES electron flux at the moment. Just toying with electron storm levels there, having reached about 8 times, it looks like. 8 times warning levels there. 7 times warning levels. So it looks like that might be subsiding a little bit. There is the 1-year graph to put all of that in context. And there is the forecast model. You can see NOAA was right on with the most recent forecast, expecting a downtick there. No arguments from me. Next, we'll show the F layer of the ionosphere. Feel free to pause the video on this frame if you're not familiar with the penetration of electromagnetic radiation, atmospheric layer temperatures, atmospheric concentrations of certain chemicals, and distances in kilometers. And here's the F layer of the ionosphere in its vibrational frequency. This data has been archived on our channel for the past 5 years. As it is once again showing us information into the space weather environment through a series of facts. It's factual data about how fast the material in this layer of the ionosphere is vibrating. And here are the anomalies from the 30-day median. Anyway, the South Atlantic anomaly should be moving around. We should have a quadrupole. The weak spot in the magnetic field should be growing. We should be seeing multiple magnetic poles forming on the planet, but we aren't. Why? Because the pole shift nonsense is just that, nonsense. Of course, we do market research on the channel, and that's part of the reason why we keep talking about this stuff, because not only do we get constant comments about it, we check and see what people are watching in terms of other channels. Anyway, here's the latest image. That's 11 o'clock Universal Time ionogram and 11 o'clock Universal Time anomalygram. At the moment, mostly low-frequency anomalies here over places like Central Asia, Northern South America, and the Central Atlantic Ocean. We also show the total electron content. Feel free to pause the video on this frame if you're not familiar with distances in miles. Here is the total electron content. It's depicting free electrons from your GPS satellite down to your handset. So these are the most likely places for GPS errors. The coupled thermosphere, ionosphere, plasmasphere electrodynamics model will show you GPS error locations most likely. We are seeing some major anomalies here in the Southern Ocean once again. So that gives us insight into things like, well, where the free electrons are located. It's literally a count of the free electrons. It's a census of a large slice of the atmosphere, all the way up to the inner portion of the outer Van Allen belt. Here's just North America, and that is the anomaly from the 10-day average in megahertz in electron count. So not to be confused with megahertz, this is literally a count of the free electrons. We do see some high electron content anomalies here over the Central Atlantic, Caribbean, Leeward Islands. And a little bit over Central America. We'll close out the space weather section of the video with the latest intensitygram and the latest SDO magnetogram. So again, multiple new sunspots to get names over here. There's one It's pretty small. This one down here is much more significant. That's likely to produce an M or even X-class flare. And of course, this new 2 groups over here. So there's 1 and there's 2. I thought I saw another one up here possibly. So yeah, still not at solar maximum. There's the full disk. Look at this active region way up here. Not a sunspot. But lots of activity. Not the kind of activity that would have me hiding in a bunker. By the way, one more little tidbit before we get to Earth weather. Article on space.com here about the Parker Solar Probe there, verifying the rather well-accepted theory that coronal holes are the source of high-speed solar wind. Again, you can find that article on space.com. Yes, coronal holes, they're super important. Parker Solar Probe is blasting off. It's the fastest object ever built. And talking about it over there. Exciting stuff for Parker Solar Probe. Next, we're looking at meteorology stuff. And guess what? There's a huge anticyclone here over the Atlantic Ocean. So this is an important feature. You can see this huge clockwise rotation and a bunch of particulate matter here from the Sahara swirling around the Atlantic. That has a tendency to tamp down tropical systems. And we are seeing some indication that people are thinking maybe a tropical system's going to build some here in the central Atlantic. I'm not so sure about it. But we do see some indications of some pressure changes happening here. This depicts surface winds and the DUX, which is aerosol optical thickness of 550 nanometers. So, and you can watch various different types of particulates like the PM10. That is the less than 10 micrometers particulate matter. So quite a bit of Saharan dust there and a high pressure system. So none of those things are particularly advantageous to tropical storms and hurricanes and so on. Just putting out facts about how weather actually works. And here are the surface winds of the eastern world. Here are the jet streams of the eastern world. Jet stream blowing backwards over the northern Indian Ocean. Here are the jet streams of the western world, the Americas. Split jet stream over the U.S. and the western portion, and then a convergence over the North Atlantic. Also a convergence over South America there. Surface winds are looking like this. There's that huge anticyclone. You can see that high pressure zone there, rotating clockwise. Here are the surface winds of the central world. Powerful low here over, I guess that's Western Asia. And these are the jet streams. Next, we're going to show snow depth, because check out the snow, and there's snow in the forecast, by the way. So quite a bit of snow here, and it's going to be snowing in summer in some locations. Wait till you see the forecasts. Let's take a brief look at snow and ice here. So for the northern hemisphere, the snow extent and snow water equivalent are well outside of the normal range. So first of all, the snow mass balance is kind of right in the normal range. It's about to be off the chart there because it ends around the end of June. But if you look at the snow extent, check it out. It's more than 1 standard deviation above normal. So snow hanging out here late into the spring. As summer approaches, there's still going to be snow there. There's no way that's going to drop down. I mean, maybe it'll drop down before summer, but hey, look at it. There you go. There's the graph. What more can I say? And last but not least, the snow water equivalent has actually been building here. Look at that. There's still plenty of snow to melt. Does that make it a year without a summer? Well, absolutely not. Now, there are other links you can find on the page here. For example, all kinds of surface assessments like ice sheets and icebergs and so on. You can see the decline of the Antarctic ice sheet since 2004. So lots of different information there. And of course, you can even view different basins in Antarctica from Global Cryosphere Watch's links. Check those out if you want to study that more. And next we've got clouds and fog over the Americas. A bunch of low clouds there over Brazil. Low clouds there showing up very obviously on the 3.9 micrometer shortwave infrared radiation satellite map. Strong storms once again moving across the Gulf states as if they haven't had enough. And here's your weather.gov map. Yeah, weather.gov. Look at all the warnings there. Those are mostly excessive heat warnings, but also some flooding and some severe thunderstorms and so forth. If your locations are lit up, head to weather.gov, click your location. We don't cover all of that. Those are too many counties with weather warnings. And these are freeze warnings, by the way. And check out the pressure and precipitation forecast. It is berserk. Why? Well, there's a bunch of heavy snow in the forecast. It's heavily snowing right now in, looks like British Columbia and Alberta. Also some severe weather here coming to South Dakota and Wyoming and Nebraska. That's your pressure and precipitation forecast based on a GFS 72-hour model. And check this out. Since some of that precipitation will be in the form of the good old white stuff, expecting nearly 2 feet of snow there for portions of British Columbia and Alberta. Mainly, it looks like Alberta mainly there. 2 more feet of snow coming there to kick off summer. Also, Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming to expect some additional snow here in the next 72 hours. Interesting, interesting. Next temperature anomaly, since there are freeze warnings. Check it out. Most of California here is expecting some 16 degrees C below normal temperatures. That's your 72-hour GFS temperature anomaly forecast in degrees Celsius. Wild temperature swings there expected for Texas. So some very cold and very hot conditions in perhaps odd locations there. Like look at eastern Canada. It's like 16 degrees above normal, 20 degrees Celsius above normal. So some major temperature variations happening here around North America indeed. Anomalous temperatures there to kick off summer. Next, your lightning mapper. There's the past about 10 hours. Heavy lightning there across the Gulf states. Let's see what's going on currently. There's our real-time lightning map. Florida Panhandle seeing a thunderstorm. Also, Mississippi and Georgia. Anyway, there's the full Earth view. That's lightningmaps.org. Check it out next time you hear thunder. And check out our websites if you haven't. We built this massive web ring for people like you. So smashomash.com is the official homepage. We launched it back in 2019 because of pathetic censorship on Facebook. We read the writing on the wall a long, long time ago and realized that we needed to have our own websites because, well, big tech's eventually going to capitulate because accountability always comes. If you want to support the channel, become a member of the Smash Team at smashomash.com/Smash Team. The official subscription services site of the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. In 2019, a crack YouTube unit was sent to social media prison for a crime we didn't commit. We promptly escaped the maximum security social media stockade to the internet underground, where we survive as producers of fortune. If you have a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can find the content, maybe you can hire the Smash Team. No, you certainly can. You can also find links to the merch, the Hemp Lucid shop, the Amazon shop, the YouTube, the Twitter, the Instagram, etc. Let's close this thing out with the U.S. Doppler radar map, clouds and fog, and water vapor. So there's the full 50 states of AUSA, the allegedly United States of America. There are the lower 48. There is clouds and fog depicted by 3.9 micrometer infrared radiation. Since half the country is still dark, and there is the water vapor map. Once again, a compression happening here in the southeastern U.S. You can see a strong, dry, massive air impulse pushing from behind, and then a bit of a blocking feature in front of and south of. So high pressure tends to constrain moist regions. Remember, folks, anticyclones blow, and low pressure zones suck. The wind from a low pressure is actually a suction, not wind. If that blows your mind, well, science is weird, and a lot of it might be counterintuitive. Anyway, here's your recap. U.S. Doppler radar, clouds and fog, and the water vapor. Thanks for tuning in to fact-based coverage about space and Earth weather. Congratulations on realizing the Smash News Network least busted name in news exists. Enjoy the last couple days of summer. By the way, we will be streaming live at the moment of the solstice, so make sure you join us for that as well. Check out our other videos in our playlists. There's some splentacular content there. Just the most detailed solar imagery and comprehensive space weather in the known universe. Anyway, I'm headed back to the bunker because I am spooked of all of that spooky stuff going on overhead. Space, oh, it's either fake or it's scary. Bye-bye.